Okay, well, good afternoon, everybody, and welcome to the lunchtime series of webinars from the Ireland Chapter of the PMI. Today, our topic is COVID-19, is eating strategy for breakfast. So it is a very enticing title for us today and of great interest to all of us who are living in the current climate. Welcome, Norma. Thank you for joining us today.
Thank you, Katrina.
So, guys, you might well be familiar with Norma because she spoke with us last April about leading and managing teams from a distance. So she's coming back today to talk to us about the current environment and speaking to us about our strategies, our company strategies in light of COVID-19. Norma is the head of global project training for Aspira, which is a technology and project consulting company. She has a very diverse career beginning in IT and has significant experience in delivering project management training across a multitude of different types of industries. She's also delivered rollouts globally. So she's worked with a lot of large multinationals in both the US, Europe and Asia. So today she is going to speak to us about COVID-19 and how that's impacting our company strategies and giving us some tools and some understanding of how to manage that in this climate. So Norma, thank you very much for joining us today and for speaking to our attendees. Before I hand over to Norma, as usual, guys, today we're going to go back and use Menti again. So please grab your phone, go to menti.com and enter the code that you see there in front of you, 254509. As always, we welcome your interaction throughout the webinar. We have some additional questions from you today. Norma is going to check in with you throughout the webinar with some questions through menti.com. And we also do plan to keep some time at the end of the webinar for your questions. Please use the Q&A in Zoom for your questions and we'll monitor those towards the end and hopefully we'll get through all of them. But for now, go to menti.com, go to 254509 and Norma will give you the nod whenever she's got a new question coming up on Menti. Okay, without further ado, I'm going to hand over to Norma. Thank you again, Norma, and we're all looking forward to this one. So I will.
Yeah. Thanks, Katrina. So, good morning, everyone. And COVID-19 is eating strategy for breakfast. Just before I start, just a little bit of background on Aspira, for those who don't know us. We are a specialist project management consultancy and technology firm led by CEO Katrina, and we have offices in Dublin, Cork, Abu Dhabi and Amsterdam. We were established in 2007 and the company now employs over 160 professional staff and has been on the Deloitte Fast 50 for the past 6 years. And for the past 3 years, we were listed by the Financial Times as one of Europe's 500 fastest growing companies. And Aspira has a total of 6 offerings, as you can see there on the screen. So to start this morning, I'm actually going to ask you to switch over to Menti. And as Katrina said, the code is 254509. And the question I have for you, on New Year's Eve, 2019-2020, so if you can cast your minds back, what was your wish or highlight going to be for 2020? Okay, so we have different things here. So work, travel, summer holiday in Italy would be nice. Write a book, stay healthy. So we'd all great dreams and ambitions and looking forward to 2020. Change roles, promotion, improve your skills. So many courses out there at the moment for improving skills. Fitness. Okay, great. The second question I have for you. Oh. Yeah. Okay, Katrina.
That's a lot of diverse answers there. So there's definitely there was a lot of planning in amongst the project management group of people. There was definitely a lot of planning going on New Year's.
There was indeed, there was, yeah. Great. So the second question then I have for you is, as of today, right now, which of these words best describes how you're feeling? So we just kind of pause for a moment and just kind of notice our feelings. Okay, so we have completely frustrated, optimistic, looking forward to the future, grateful, So choosing to adopt, the gratitude perspective is a powerful way to overcome negative thoughts. So that the biggest emotion here is frustrated. Okay, and innovative, and one feeling energized. All right, so I'm just going to switch back. Okay. So COVID-19 is eating strategy for breakfast. And while there was a past, right, of relative stability and predictability, there now is chaos and disruption. There will be a different state. So the actions of you and your teams now in the midst of this crisis will significantly determine your fate. Today, we're going to explore how to navigate through the crisis. We're going to start with the 5 stages of disruption denial, which is the emotional roller coaster that we are all currently experiencing. Then we will look at the burning platform, COVID-19. Your focus needs to be on what is likely to come next and ready to meet it. Moving on, we will look at how to innovate your business model for success. In a time of crisis, there are a lot of decisions to make in terms of safeguarding lives and livelihoods, so action needs to be decisive. Finally, we need to lead the new strategic direction. Success is dependent on the leader's ability to move the organization forward even when the path ahead is hazy. So as you saw, when we cast our minds back to New Year's Eve, we all started 2020 full of hopes and dreams, holidays, travel, sport, parties. Business-wise, we had our targets and forecasts and our strategic plans. All of this was based on a reasonable set of assumptions. Everything seemed relatively stable and predictable. 2019 was great, but 2020, the start of a new decade, was going to be even better. However, since 2020, it has been a roller coaster ride. Noise of COVID-19 started in January, and we looked at it. In February, we looked at it. On March the 4th, I was training a global team where 19 out of 20 nationalities from the EMEA region travelled to Dublin. The only one missing was the person from Italy. It was business as usual, and COVID-19 wasn't even on the menu. We were in denial. Then, reluctantly, the Six Nations Rugby was cancelled on the 6th of March, and St. Patrick's Day was cancelled on the 17th of March. We became frustrated. Then there was lockdown. Life as we know it was changing dramatically. We became depressed. Then slowly, this unforeseen enemy forced us to begin to innovate in how we do business. We realized we were facing a wall of issues, and decisive action and leadership was required. This sudden, unforeseen economy-wide lockdown forced us to reimagine our business model and to find creative solutions for changing customer needs. Businesses that would otherwise have taken years to realize their digital transformation agendas accelerated their efforts dramatically. Speed was of the essence. Businesses needed to reassess their value proposition and their target markets. Questions such as, were they still relevant? Will the crisis affect the existing performance metrics? What kind of earnings or losses will we encounter? How might it affect our reputation? Businesses were also facing unprecedented logistics and transportation challenges. They had to find new channels to collaborate with external partners, customers, suppliers, and even competitors. Businesses needed to reassess their capabilities in terms of the skills of their people, the infrastructure to support the new business model, and the robustness of their supply chain. Everything was changing as we grasped the seismic challenge of COVID-19. We will use Kotter's 8-step model to successfully navigate these changes. Step 1 is to acknowledge and embrace the challenge of COVID-19. Steps 2, 3, and 4 is about building the right team, forming a strategic vision, and communicating for buy-in to successfully innovate. Step 5 is about taking pragmatic action in the face of strategic ambiguity. Steps 6, 7, and 8 is about leading the new strategic direction through generating short-term wins, sustaining momentum, and finally, instituting the change in the organization's culture. One lesson from previous crises is that companies that are proactive and growth-oriented, even as they shore up their vulnerabilities, will have an edge coming out of the crisis. COVID-19 is an exponential crisis requiring an exponential response. COVID-19 is our burning platform. This fiery term refers to the story of a worker living on a North Sea oil rig who woke up to an explosion and had to choose between staying on the platform, which was on fire, or plunging into the icy waters. This situation was unexpected. In ordinary times, the man would never consider plunging into the icy waters, but these were not ordinary times. He survived the fall and noted that the burning platform caused a radical change in his behaviour. Initially, COVID-19 was seen as the burning platform in China. We didn't see it as an imminent or potential threat. We were more focused on the impact and potential threat of Brexit. It wasn't until March the 12th when the then Taoiseach Leo Varadkar ordered the closure of all schools, colleges, and other public facilities for at least 2 weeks, and indoor gatherings of more than 100 people and outdoor gatherings of more than 500 people be cancelled, that COVID-19 became our burning platform. While recognising that there now is chaos and disruption, we also need to show confidence in our business's future and drive forward momentum, even when there is this uncertainty. We should bombard people on future opportunities that could be exploited and on the wonderful rewards for capitalising on those opportunities, and how we can rethink our business model to pursue those opportunities. We also need to start having honest discussions about the impact of COVID-19 on our business and get people talking and thinking. We need to create a safe environment where people are not afraid to speak up and to challenge the current business model. These conversations will significantly determine our fate. And once again, if you can go to your mobile phone to mentimeter.com and I can ask you this: how safe is it to speak up on your team? So this is Amy Edmondson's tool to measure psychological safety. And psychological safety exists when people feel safe to speak up, to offer ideas and to ask questions. It's about candor and curiosity. So if you go to menti.com on your phone, and the code is 254509. So menti.com, and the code is 254509.
Thanks, Norma. I've popped that into the chat as well, guys. And just
okay, brilliant.
And while you're answering that, guys, as well, just a reminder, you can use the Q&A. So pop a question in there. If you have any questions for Norma, we will try and keep some time at the end as well for that. And you can upvote somebody else's question as well. So if a question's already been asked and you're going to ask it, just click the like button and we'll, like I said, we'll keep some time at the end. Thanks, Norma. So 454509, and it's in the chat there as well, guys. I'm just answering as well myself, Norma.
Oh, great, very good. So there's 4 questions there. So members of this team are able to bring up problems and tough issues. So we have over on the right, strongly agree, which is great. People on this team sometimes reject others for being different. So it's more over to the left, strongly disagree. It is safe to take a risk on this team. And finally, working with members of this team, my unique skills and talents are valued and utilized. So it's important, especially now, to have an environment where people can communicate openly and not feel anxious when speaking up and not worried about what others might think of them. So we need a culture in which it's possible and permissible to speak up. Okay, great.
It's an interesting mix of answers there. I mean, I think it's definitely important as well, if there are people on your team that maybe aren't always open to ideas, that you do have to push through that. You know, you have to be the brave person that says, we don't all have to agree with each other, but
yes,
we have to do something different now. So
absolutely. And sometimes it's good, you know, for someone to play the devil's advocate, you know, in a discussion and to get people thinking of different perspectives. Okay, great. So we move back. Okay. So finally, we need to set ambitious goals and not let uncertainty stall progress. This is not a time for complacency, and everyone needs to rise to the challenge of COVID-19. Now that we've accepted that COVID-19 is on our menu and the need to adjust to the dramatically shifting conditions, we need to look at how we are going to innovate for success by engaging a core team, revisiting the strategic vision, and communicating for buy-in. In responding to COVID-19, businesses and government have built credible teams with the critical knowledge and expertise to support them in responding to the crisis and in driving the change effort. You cannot be a lone voice. You need to have a team with the right characteristics who share a common goal. Without one, change stalls and carnage grows. So you need to find the right people. You need to have people with the right characteristics from diverse backgrounds to ensure different perspectives. The effective coalition needs to consist of people with power and influence. You need to ask, have we enough key players on board? Can those left out easily block progress? We also need people with expertise and bias for action. Have we the right skill sets so that intelligent decisions can be made? We also need people with credibility and authority. Does the group have enough people with good reputations in the organization? Will our proposals be taken seriously? And finally, people with leadership skills. Jacinda Ardern, Prime Minister of New Zealand, who has been phenomenal in her leadership in the battle of COVID-19. So these teams need to reimagine the business model. They need to gather information and reevaluate the value proposition and the customer segments and make recommendations for different scenarios. there has been great Irish innovation and ingenuity as COVID-19 took its toll. Irish Distillers is providing the HSE with large-scale quantities of alcohol-based hand sanitizing gel for free to aid frontline staff. O'Neill's sportswear manufacturers temporarily laid off its staff as the COVID-19 pandemic eliminated its order book, but they reimagined their business model and is now back in action today, manufacturing scrubs and masks. Even us, overnight, we became bakers, baristas, and barbers. Also, customer segments have changed. Do you remember the biggest panic buy was toilet rolls at the start of the crisis? Well, the biggest customer segment for toilet rolls was industry. However, with the switch to working from home, their biggest customer segment switched to the home user. Also, with the airline industry, while the passenger customer segment fell off a cliff, the cargo customer segment had a meteoric rise. In reimagining your business model, you need to re-engage with your customers and find out what they need. Then you need to reimagine your value proposition and give it to them. So again, we're just going to go back to Mentimeter, and question for you: has your business model changed recently in terms of those 4 dimensions? So, does your current product and service portfolio, has that changed since COVID-19? Are you looking at new customer segments, new capabilities, and new channels and new ways of connecting with your customers, of distributing your goods and services? So you can see there's been massive innovations there, like very disruptive innovations. Okay.
Yeah, guys, the code is 254509, and it's in the chat there as well. Yeah, it's a very diverse split there. There's obviously a lot of opportunities.
Yeah, and people have like overnight reimagined their business model and come up with new products and new service. Even for ourselves within Aspira, all our training was face to face, and overnight we had to switch our offering to a virtual offering. So a lot of bricks and mortar business as well had to switch to online if possible. So new capabilities. So yeah, so I mean, again, adopting a new digital agenda, having to learn new skills, new digital skills possibly. Wow, okay. And then the second question: can you describe those innovations in 3 words? So we had new products and new services. What new capabilities had you to learn or introduce? New channels, so new ways of connecting with your customers and clients. We see there, and new customer segments. So were you targeting different customer segments? So remote working. Okay, so that was a big change for everyone overnight. Yeah, less people in the office. So more flexible. Yeah, in a working arrangements. Faster. Yeah, so the speed of change has been phenomenal. I mean, adopting that new digital agenda. I mean, some people had, we're going to take maybe 2 years to this to transfer to digital. In a couple of weeks, they've reinvented themselves. So adopting more agile approach. Yeah, and so people were not afraid to try new things. So the pace of change is really quickened. And remote working, I suppose that's being the biggest change for people. And luckily, with knowledge workers, that we're able to work remotely.
It's been fast as well, I think, and a few people have mentioned flexibility there. It's one of the key call outs for me is how quick it's been. There hasn't been 3 months of strategizing in a room and thinking about it, and there's been no navel gazing. It's been, try it. If it doesn't work, we'll try something else. But we have to try something. So speed has definitely been more apparent, I think. Maybe.
The pace of change has been phenomenal. I think that's the biggest thing there.
And Jackie has made a really good comment here in the chat. She just said, just talking about adapting. If you're looking to buy a house, you're not doing the viewing face to face at the moment. You're doing it virtually. You're doing it online. So yeah, and that was something that was actually not quite common in America from the perspective of a virtual viewing of a house. The technology was there and it was very used. It didn't stop people from going to the house physically, but it was a sort of a step before it. Whereas now that's becoming very common here. So we're adapting very quickly. That's a good comment, Jackie. Thank you.
Yeah, and like global connectivity there, I just see that as well. Like, I mean, we have access now to a global audience, even job-wise, you have access to, because everyone's working virtually, so it doesn't, your office is where your Wi-Fi is, essentially. Okay, so that's very interesting there. Thank you for all that. So we go back again. So strategic uncertainty, right, can feel like slogging through mud, but success depends on moving the organization forward precisely at times when the path ahead is hazy. So what can you do today to prepare yourself, your team, and potentially your clients for change? Embrace short-term strategies. Once you've focused your team on delivering value and started to explore what's possible, you can move forward with a discrete set of priorities. What projects can your team execute in 30, 60, or 90 days that would benefit the organization regardless of which direction the strategy takes? Don't stand still awaiting the final answer on strategy. Move your team and the company forward. Ensure you have the right capabilities to deliver on your strategy. Have we the right talent? Do we have the right infrastructure? How is our cash runway? What is the mood music of our customers? How effective is our supply chain? With strategic ambiguity, we need to take pragmatic action. Doing something, anything, in support of your company's success makes you and your team feel better than doing nothing. Get back to basics. Deliver value. Focus on what you can control. How can you perform better, faster, or smarter to deliver on the promise of excellent service? When uncertainty comes, first and foremost, do good work. Demonstrate emotional steadiness by sharing your own emotions and acknowledge those of your team in productive ways. It is important to be calm. Tap into others' expertise. Remind yourself you are not alone. Next, we need to communicate for buy-in. We need to share strategic priorities and principles that will guide decisions with our teams. High level of transparency, frank and personal communication is essential. We need to keep team communication open and be conscious that people will have dozens of questions. Strategic ambiguity can cause managers to communicate with team members less frequently and less openly. Sometimes we think if we don't have clarity to provide, why not wait? But in truth, ambiguous situations require you to communicate even more than normal. So maintaining open dialogue will keep your team engaged and aligned until a clear direction emerges. We often underestimate the noise that our people deal with every day. So we feel that if we share strategic priorities just once at a town hall or in an email or a PowerPoint slide deck that everybody's on board. The fact is, strategy is a conversation. It's a dialogue where you're sharing direction and guidance and listening to reactions. You're finalizing strategy, not top down, but more of a zigzag through the organization. And there's this incredible need to revisit often and reiterate and reinforce when you have to make a shift based on new information so that you can maintain alignment. What's important when there's ambiguity about organizational strategy is to have dialogue in that iterative, zigzag process and not simply top down. Step 5, decisive action. As we said, taking pragmatic action is essential. It's important to do a lot and do it soon. Waiting to see how things develop at a time like this is a mistake. Start to work toward a future state, even when the complete landscape remains out of focus. Jacinda Ardern, Prime Minister of New Zealand, she responded to the crisis saying, "We must go hard and we must go early." Enable action by removing barriers. Empower your people. Remove inefficient processes and hierarchies. Provide the freedom necessary to work across silos and generate real impact. Provide training. Be prepared for resistance and help them see what is needed. You can't rely on everyone understanding a situation in the same way that you do. So as the leader, you need to lead the new strategic direction with confidence and drive momentum forward. Given the rapidly changing environment that you are working in, make sure to acknowledge your team's short-term wins. Also, speed and agility are key. You must learn quickly, constantly pivoting and adjusting both your vision and strategy. Finally, we need to embed the new behaviours and knowledge into the organisational culture. We're going to switch to Menti again. And
okay, guys, it's 254509, just to remind you.
Yeah, so 254509.
Pop that in the chat as well.
Thanks, Katrina. So the question I ask is, who would you consider to be a great leader? So it could be on the global stage, could be in your office, could be in home, at home. So who would you consider to be a great leader? So Richard Branson, Barack Obama, Leo Varadkar. Okay. Ursula von der Leyen. I'm not sure who she is. Do you, Katrina, know?
Ursula von der Leyen, she's one of the EU leaders.
Okay.
I'll do a quick Google, but that's who she is. She's from the EU.
Yeah. Jürgen Klopp. So Liverpool win the championship in 30 years. So great success there, and they attribute it to him. Jacinda Ardern. Okay. Sunil. So that's Sunil, the CEO of the PMI. So he's over a year now as CEO of the PMI.
Ursula is the president of the European Commission.
Okay, very good.
She was just appointed last year, actually, so she's going to have a fun time being presented with a pandemic as well in her first full year of office.
Yeah, so it's very, very challenging.
Yeah.
Nelson Mandela. Okay.
Interesting to see sports people in there as well, like Roy Keane, that we do look like to different areas for leadership.
Yes. And all seem to be on the global stage.
Yep.
Okay, great. And then another question.
Yeah.
What single characteristic do you think makes a great leader? So of those leaders, that authenticity. So yeah, empathy, leading with empathy. And I think Jacinta Ardern, she really has led with empathy.
She's decisive as well. I mean, I think in this situation, you're not going to be popular. Like, there's things that are going to make you popular, and there are things that are going to make you unpopular. And you have to be able to have the courage of your convictions. You have to know you're going to make a mistake. The only way to not make a mistake is to do nothing. So,
absolutely. And I think, you know, being decisive.
A mistake as well, to be honest. So, yeah, that's probably the biggest mistake they could make right now.
Exactly. And people are looking to leaders, you know, for direction, and they need them to be, you know, confident and decisive. And compassion, transparency, inclusivity, not afraid to fail. Yeah.
It's interesting to see authenticity there 3 times. So it's real honesty as well, which I think is probably on the same line. It is. I suppose we just want to feel that someone is genuine about what they're saying and doing. So even if they don't get it right, that you feel like it was coming from a transparent place.
Yeah.
And it's coming from the right place, basically.
And that's important, like leading, you know, by example, and you know, to gain the trust of the people. Okay, thank you. We'll go back. And as we said about Jacinta Ardern, that her clarity and decisiveness, you know, have helped New Zealand. But leadership is important in a crisis. And as we navigate through strategic ambiguity, it is important to celebrate short-term wins. Wins must be recognised and communicated. You know, change requires a lot of energy, and you need to bring the people along with you. Therefore, we need to recognise and reward people for making change happen, and this will further motivate them. We must lead by example. So in times of uncertainty, people look to the actions of others to guide their thinking and will imitate what they are doing. That's why it is so important that we model the behaviour required. Finally, change only sticks when it becomes the way we do things around here, i.e. culture. So to anchor change into the organisation's culture, we need to show people how their new specific behaviours and attitudes have helped improve organisational performance. It is only when people see the connections between the new actions and the performance improvement that cultural change happens. So most cultural change happens in this final step of the Kotter model. Using Kotter's 8-step model, you can manage change successfully. Kotter's 8-step change model is the leading methodology for implementing change management. So to recap, step 1 is to acknowledge and embrace the challenge of COVID-19. Steps 2, 3, and 4 is about building the right team, forming a strategic vision, and communicating for buy-in to successfully innovate. Communication is critical, and leaders need to be visible and maintain frequent dialogue. Step 5 is about taking pragmatic action in the face of strategic ambiguity. Steps 6, 7, and 8 is about leading the new strategic direction through generating short-term wins, sustaining momentum, and finally, instituting the change in the organization's culture. So by following these 8 steps, you can successfully navigate through the crisis and emerge triumphant. Finally, I'd like to thank you for your attention and leave you with a quote from Socrates. The secret of change is to focus all of your energy not on fighting the old, but on building the new. So I'll pass you over to Katrina for questions and answers. So thank you.
Very good, thank you. We actually do have a couple of questions. So I wrote one of them down. Greg gave us a question earlier, and it's interesting. I will pose it in the form of a question, Norma. Management team style has had to change 180. Why did it take a pandemic for this to happen? I sense a bit of frustration in that question, but I do think that there is a genuine, like, what is the difference? Why would we see so much change in this situation?
Yeah, I suppose, like, and that was the burning platform, was COVID-19, and sometimes it needs a crisis or a compelling event to make people change, you know, because we become very complacent and we become comfortable and steady with the status quo. So even management, you know, everything is ticking along nicely, but sometimes it takes like a major event, you know, the burning platform, as they say, to galvanize people together and to take decisive action and make change.
I think you mentioned as well, I've just asked Jackie Fagan, she's got a couple of questions, so I've just, she'll be able to talk in a second as well, if the technology works for us. But I also think that in every day, we've done a lot of training with the 4 boxes, the things that are important but not urgent, the things that are urgent but not important. And I do think that, in fairness to all of us, there's a shift there in this burning platform scenario where all of the things that are not urgent are swept to the side, and it's very much, it focuses everyone, including management, and management are very visible, so when they make changes we all see them.
And I think and that's what has happened within organizations, that they're reprioritizing the projects, you know, and
exactly. Yeah. So Jackie, hopefully can you are you able to
hear me?
Perfect. Yeah. So Jackie,
lovely. Hi Norman.
Hi,
how you doing? So guys, very interesting talk, very good. Thank you very much, Norma. Just 2 points I have. If at the beginning you asked us all how we felt in this COVID epidemic, and I think a large amount said frustrated. There was frustration there that was very high up. And I'm just wondering, given that most people are frustrated, and I know the 8th step about trying to embrace change and all that, are there any tips for individuals on this team that are on the call now of how to move from that frustration phase into an embracing change?
I suppose, so frustration is to try to move to kind of a curiosity, is kind of to pause and think and recognize your emotions. So rather than, you know, feeling frustrated, is to try to, there's this thing called the mood elevator, and the lower floors are like depression and frustration, whereas the highest floor would be gratitude. The middle one is curiosity. So if we can kind of step back and ask questions, you know, and trying to find answers and being curious and non-judgmental, to try to lift ourselves out of frustration, because it's our thoughts that create our emotional reality. So we can change our thoughts, we can change our world. So it's to kind of step back and maybe ask questions, I think, to be curious and non-judgmental. That's
a great tip about the floors, the elevators. Frustration, curiosity, then gratitude. The other question I had, Norma, is sort of, I know there's probably no direct yes or no answer for it, but you mentioned around coming out of lockdown, we need to focus, do good work, not stand still. Given that coming out of lockdown, it will be ever changing. Is there, in your opinion, a fear of changing for change's sake? You know, the way when we're going through projects, you know, we analyze the change and we do an impact analysis and all that. But given that the changes, even like we were seeing the lockdown period, just as an FYI, I sit on the pastoral council, and we were trying to get newsletters out to people about the church opening, and we couldn't send them because one day it was 100 people, then it was 50 people, then it was many as you can with 2 meters, and eventually the decision was 50 people. So given that the changes are happening so quickly, how do we embrace the change and react in a positive way without gut reaction to everything? And I know this, it's probably a very unfair question, but I'd like to hear your thoughts on that.
You mean the constant change, that the kind of changing for us, and I suppose it's about, you know, communication as well, and you know, they are changing, you know, daily. Kind of the goalposts are changing, and I suppose sometimes you need to pause and reflect as well. And I mean, you can only do, you know, what's possible within the constraints that you find yourself within. And that's why we're saying kind of short-term planning, like, you know, what we do 30 days, 60 days, 90 days. And to look at what positive steps can we take within those constraints. And if the goalposts do change, again, it's just to step back and think, okay, right, you know, things have changed. You know, what can we do now within those constraints? I don't know whether that really, does that answer your question?
Yeah, no, it does. I was just interested in hearing your feedback. And apologies, guys. I noticed my photo is a photo of me doing the Mamma Mia, so ignore that.
We love it. But look, it is, I think there's a couple of things here. Like when you use that one as an example, Jackie, with trying to let your congregation know what's happening. What's needed there as well on the other side from the government is decisiveness, that and they're never going to make everybody happy. And I suppose maybe the travel situation right now is very topical. Should we travel? Should we not? We're told you really shouldn't travel, but yet we're allowed to travel, and that would have, I suppose, an impact on a lot of businesses as well. And they, you know, travel agents probably don't know, should I be marketing now? Should I be selling trips to people, or should I just step back and wait? So decisiveness helps as well, and that's something that's obviously out of your control at the moment. Then you have to just go with what Norma said. You have to communicate what you know at the time, and just
exactly
where it's going to change.
And people need clarity.
Yeah, absolutely. Norma, there's a question here from Greg, and I think it's probably, you know, maybe a hard enough one to answer. It's how should personnel assessments be changed to determine progression in these times? So, using himself as an example, he's not working from home, but he's working at home during a crisis. They're very different.
Personal assessments, is it?
Yeah, exactly. So we're all going through our mid-years at the moment. Should we be taking it into account that people are now working in a different environment, or should we ignore it and expect them to deliver as they always have?
No, I think you know, we're all facing the same challenge, but we all have a different set of circumstances, and I think you need to be conscious of that, you know, when you're making, you know, those personal assessments, because it's a very different time, and you cannot just ignore it. I think you have to be cognizant, you know, that people have a different set of circumstances, and you know, some people find it very challenging working remotely. Other people, you know, love it. You know, and but there are a lot of challenges, and it is a stressful time because there's so much uncertainty, and I think, you know, you have to be cognizant of that when doing, you know, personal assessments.
I think we need to be cognizant of it as well. Like when you're usually in most companies, if you're doing an assessment, you get the opportunity to assess yourself as well, and that's where you need to put the extra time into it. And as project managers, it tends to be maybe focused on, well, I delivered this project, or it's gone through the following milestones that I said it would, or I managed my budget. But probably taking that extra time now to sit down, doing your own mid-year assessment and call out the things that would normally have taken you maybe an hour to do, and now are taking you 4 hours to do, that put it down in writing and make sure that your manager is aware of it. So don't expect them to understand it. Make sure that you put it down in writing in front of them. And also, if you are managing other people, ask them. So that's what I'm doing at the moment with my team. I'm saying to them, now is your opportunity to put it in writing and say, you know, these are the extra things. Some of them have actually taken on projects at very short notice because of this. So there's things like that we have to do. Just make sure you put it in writing, because people will forget in 6 months' time. You'll even forget yourself in 6 months' time of the things that you went through, because we tend to remember maybe the positives at the very end. So don't be shy about calling out the things that you did that were extra or that were tougher for you to do them in the new circumstances, and get it in writing. Yeah,
definitely. I would agree with that, Katrina.
Graham has a question first, so I think we've a little bit of time, if that's okay, Norma. So from Graham: having had great progress in various institutions and radical agreements, will things revert back to the old ways when the burning platform is removed? Using HSE in education, for example, so much has changed in a short period, and I guess probably similar to Greg's earlier question, why didn't this occur before?
Yeah, no, I think like we're currently living in the new normal, and I think there will be the next normal. I don't think we'll ever go back to the way things were completely. And I think like even education, I know for us, you know, with training and whatever, it's going to be more of a blended approach. Even going back to the office, I think that it's going to be a blended approach again, that say, you know, people are looking at not having 100% staff in the office like they did. They're looking at maybe, you know, 50% or, you know, less. And I think employers, where originally they were kind of, you know, the remote working, they weren't exactly, it wasn't, you know, they didn't find it would work, but they see now that people are working remotely, business is being conducted, projects are being delivered, and, you know, that it can be done. So I think we are going to have like the next normal. I don't think things will ever be the same as the way they were.
But it's interesting, even using the remote working as an example, I've seen two sides to that. And sometimes I'd use the phrase, be careful what you wish for. I think that the remote working has been a great learning for all of us, because I've worked with a lot of people through the years who have really bemoaned the fact that maybe their employer wasn't flexible working from home, and now they have that flexibility, and that's positive. However, they've also seen the downside of it. It is very difficult. You have to put 110% into your communications. You have to think about being flexible with your working hours. There's lots of things that are, it's a compromise. There's a lot of compromise involved in remote working, and I'm working with people at the moment that have said, you know what, this working from home has been great because I don't have the commute that I normally had. Some of them would have been commuting from places like, you know, Navan and Meath, and it's, you know, through the traffic, it's a bit crazy, but I miss the human interaction. I miss being able to pop over to someone's desk and get a quick answer for them on something. Things are a lot slower. So a lot of the time it is, we're all probably seeing what the reality is. But I do think where Graham's coming from in terms of HSE and the education, we do need some step changes in those areas. So hopefully this has created a different mindset in those areas, and people will be more willing to try different things and innovate, essentially. Hopefully.
Definitely, yeah. Very good.
Greg has made the comment, crises rarely come at one at a time, do they? So, I don't know, I think you might be tempted fate there. Yeah. Okay, so I mean, from that's all of the questions. So I think we'll start to wrap up. Anything else that you want to raise at the moment?
No, I'm good. Thanks, Katrina. If there's no further questions.
Okay, I shall take back the screen there. Hopefully you'll be able to see that. So thanks, Jackie, for joining us there for a couple of questions as well. So for everyone that's with us, so again, thanks to everyone for joining us. This really is the last one before we take a break for July and August, and we will be back in September, and we already have a couple of webinars coming up in September. First things first, we've half a strategic and half a leadership PDU for everyone today who's attended the webinar. And as usual, if you registered with your Ireland Chapter PMI member ID, because we do have some guests with us today from the IMCA and from the NI chapter, UK and NI chapter of the PMI. If you registered with your PMI member number, we'll auto-register the PDU for you. We're also going to share the recording and the slides on the chapter webpage in the coming days. So you'll have that to watch back again. And I was saying to Norma earlier that her previous webinar on leading teams remotely. Leading and Managing from a Distance, I think was the name of it in April, continues to be our most popular webinar recording, so you can watch back any of the recordings that you want to. In terms of upcoming webinars, we have our usual, we already have one scheduled in ourselves for September 10th, and there will be a couple more coming in the next week, so you'll be able to register for those as well. Please remember that if you're a PMI member, you also have access to the projectmanagement.com webinars. I've shared a little taster of them here, but if you go into the link, you'll be able to see the full schedule. You also keep an eye on our page and you'll see ours as they come online. And as part of the European collaboration, we are sharing our webinars with the PMI ECC, and they are also sharing theirs. So if you pop into that link, you will see webinars from across the European Union. So if any of you also have a second language, the majority of them are in English, but if anyone does have a second language and you want to keep your practice up, that's a good opportunity as well. And it's the same with projectmanagement.com. Some of the webinars that are coming through are in different languages, so keep that in mind as well, because it's a good way to get a little bit more diversity into the subjects as well. So that's really all I wanted to say to everybody today. Thanks, Jackie, for joining us for the Q&A, and Norma, thanks again for a fantastic and very topical webinar.
Thanks, Katrina.
Yes,
Hopefully we'll
absolutely.
be back again.